and welcome to the Martial Truth. In this episode, I want to talk about let's move forward. So, in martial arts, especially in karate, I see all the time people working against attacks where they step back. They step back. And again, if it's a beginner, a white belt, even maybe a green belt, doesn't bother me too much. When I see brown belts and black belts stepping back all the time, it's a big red flag for me. So why is it important to step forward and to move in against the opponent? Well, in the sport realm, it's not important. Okay, so if you're a dojo and yourself, if your big goal in life is to win medals and to win trophies in tournament sparring, then the back and forth, the jumping back and forth, and as your opponent attacks, you back up, then you attack, and eventually, there's a clash and someone scores a point. That's fine. If that's what you like about martial arts, more power to you. I'm not going to knock it, but it's not for me. I can tell you now, experiencing a lot of real fighting, real combat where people try to kill me and seriously harm me, I cannot get excited about fighting in a tournament. It just does absolutely nothing for me, does not get the juices flowing. Plus, it's forcing me to fight within a framework of rules. And I don't fight within a framework of rules. I don't even do sport sparring in my Ishinru classes. I have not done sport sparring in my Ishinru classes in probably 25 years at least. Okay? Everything we do is close in, person attacks, we counter it. That's what we work on. So, but you say, but I see a lot of the Okinawan sensei, they teach these prearranged drills where they step back, block, and counter. Then the person attacks, and now they step in and they block and counter. And then the person steps in again, and they step back and block and counter. And I guess maybe they'd say, well, it's important to be able to move forward and back. I agree. It's important to be able to move forward and back. However, in real situations, you want to move in on the opponent. Okay? It's quite simple. So if you study karate or any other empty hand art and you have forms, I want you today to go through your forms and I want you to add up the amount of times you step in as opposed to the amount of times you step back. In Ishinru, I'd say it's about 90% to 10% that we step forward. Okay? I know in the dojo, when we're doing techniques against an opponent who's attacking with a punch, always remember, punch is the number one attack worldwide. Okay, number one. In the beginning, I start training people right off the bat to move in. But that reptilian brain is a funny thing, and the fight or flight syndrome is real. So a lot of the beginners, when that punch is first coming at them, even though I'm telling them to move in, they move back. And again, that's fine. In the beginning, it's fine. They're going to do that. But I'm still emphasizing that they should move in. Then eventually what happens is the person, instead of stepping back, begins to step to the side. So now they're moving in, but they're kind of going around. They're taking a not direct approach, but they're going around and coming in. And that's fine, and that's a viable technique, and it will work in combat. I'm not saying it doesn't, right? The point you want to get to is what you want to be able to do is go straight down the center line of the opponent as he attacks. Okay? And the goal is before his punch finishes where his brain thought it would have hit you, you've already hit him. So the goal is you want his brain thinking, oh boy, I'm going to hit him, I'm going to hit him, I'm going to hit him. And then his brain has to switch a gear and goes, uh-oh, what's that? What that is that's me moving in and putting a finger in his eye or striking him in the throat or hitting him in the groin or moving in and slamming him to the ground, whatever technique I see he's open for, and then I can use against him. So a couple other things. So if you step back, what more often than not will happen if a person is throwing a big haymaker punch And if they're bigger than you and taller than you and heavier than you, gravity's going to help them when that punch is coming in. And that punch is coming at you. And as you step back, you're in a very awkward position. And now your momentum's going backwards. So let's say you do the classic karate block, which I can tell you now, I never used in a real fight. Okay, head block up. Okay, never used it. All right, but let's say you do that. So you step back and you block. As soon as you block that punch, his brain sends an immediate signal to throw the next hand. And now the next hand is coming at you. And now you're stepping back again. And now you're back, right? And now you're on your heels. And I'll illustrate this with a story. I was a green belt in karate, and I got into an altercation with another teenager, right? And again, I was a green belt. And the first dojo I trained in, they constantly taught you to step back. And eventually they went to the side. We'll move to the side, okay? But a lot was stepping back. So the guy throws a punch at me, and I step back, and I do my classic head block. This is one instance where I use my classic head block. But this is two teenagers, so it's, I wouldn't call it life and death. I just call it like two guys, fighting a little bit, and till one gets tired and decides to call it off, right? So he throws a punch at me. I come up in a block, and I block it. Punch doesn't get anywhere near me. I step back. And now immediately out of the hand comes, and I step back again. And now what happens is my momentum's going backwards. And I immediately am realizing, well, what am I gonna do here? Lucky for me, he lost his balance and fell to his knees. And I was able to hit him with a kick. And after that, he wasn't too interested in continue fighting. But I said to myself, even at that time, I said, at the time I thought, well, that went pretty well. But then as I started to think about it, I was like, well, no, I kind of got lucky. He lost his balance and fell. Like, stepping back, right? So I was like, so even back then I started to think, I don't know, maybe this stepping back thing is not such a good idea. So once you begin to move back, you're on your heels, and now there's a good chance if you keep stepping back, you'll trip over your own feet. You'll lose your own balance. Now you'll fall on the ground. Now maybe he's going to start stomping you, kicking you, whatever. Forget this modern stuff of he's going to mount you. And no, when I started martial arts, that was a guy sat on your chest and he just punched you in your head. All right, okay. So now they have it's the mount, it's this. Okay, again, you don't want someone sitting on top of you, punching you in the face or bouncing your head off the floor. Okay, it's something I don't recommend. All right, so we want to move in. So let's talk about moving in. So I'll lowball the figure, but I'll say I've had at least 100 people throw real punches at me. Okay. And again, I didn't get in a karate kamae or a karate stance. Normally I stood with my hands kind of down and relaxed, because once the guy squared off and picked his hands up, I said to myself, well, let me lure him in and give him my head, right? Because again, a punch to the face is the number one attack, right? Why? Well, we're looking at the person's face, right? And it's something we want to hit. We want to hit it because the person, for whatever reason, we want to, do violence upon them, okay? And what would happen was, and I noticed this, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, is the predator is used to violence. He's much more used to real violence than your average martial artist, okay? Again, in martial arts, we train within the dojo in the realm of fantasy violence, meaning unless someone walks in your dojo door and tries to actually do you physical harm, where he's trying to seriously hurt you, okay? The dojo violence is fantasy violence. Guys throwing a punch, you're countering, whatever. Doing a grab, you're doing a joint lock, countering, whatever. Attacking, throwing them, whatever. Okay. So now, this happens where you're faced off with a guy. He's got his hands up, maybe my hands are a little lower here, and he comes in with the punch. He has thrown that punch at people numerous times, and probably more often than not, he's actually hit them. And virtually every single time he's thrown a punch at them, they've moved in which direction? They've moved back, right? Because your natural instinct is when someone's attacking you with a punch, it is to back off, right? So you have to train that natural instinct out of your body and train yourself to move in. So now the person throws the punch. He's expecting me to back up. I move in. This is the look on his face as I move in. Right? Also, a lot of times, as I moved in, he started already backing away like this as he's throwing the punch. So the thing that he's caused numerous times, whereas he's attacking someone and they back up, now I flip the switch. So now his brain is saying, I got this guy, I'm going to knock him out, I'm going to take him out, I'm going to hit him, whoa! And his whole body reacts, and he'll possibly, as he's throwing a punch, begin to move backwards. Once he moves backwards, he's on his heels. We're not talking a trained fighter here. He's not a boxer moving on the balls of his feet. Okay? He usually rocks back on his heels. I never allow him to recover from that. At that point, the fight's over. I move in and I finish him. Now, depending on the severity of the attack, what he's doing with the attack, is he attacking me with a knife? Does he have a weapon, right? Are there multiple opponents, right? That depends on the level I go to in terms of the force I'm going to use against him, okay? And again, as a police officer, a lot of times I would do techniques where, I would move in, possibly do an initial strike, right? Maybe to jar him, to again, once I move in, I want to confuse that brain. I move in, that's confusion number one. His brain says, what's that? Before his brain can begin to formulate a counterattack, right? Now I hit him. Now his brain says, ouch, ow, that hurt, what's that? By the time he does that, I move in, I throw him or sweep him, take him to the floor, right? Now he hits the floor hard, he's banged again, his brain. I never allow him to regain his mental balance or his physical balance. And then once I get him on the floor, again, in my case as a law enforcement officer, I would look to put him in a position, usually involving some type of joint lock, to place him in handcuffs. Okay? So the idea that you want to move back and move back and move back is a very dangerous idea for actual combat. And for my friends that like tournaments, I love when you tell me things like, well, yeah, I only fight like that in tournaments. Like in the street, I'd fight completely different. That is such a ridiculous statement. I can't even get my head wrapped around it. You're going to fight the way you train. Okay? So if you're training to step back all the time, you're going to step back in a real fight. Okay? And frankly, if you don't train to step back, there's a chance in your first encounter you will step back anyway. Okay? Because it usually comes as such a shock, sometimes your training goes out the window. Second thing is, if you're doing the sport sparring and that's the bulk of your partner training, which a lot of karate schools, basics, kata, sparring. Okay? If that's what you're doing and you're doing this sparring where you lunge in and your opponent backs off and then he attacks and you're bouncing up and down on your feet and that's how you're training, that's fantastic. Don't think that that's going to necessarily help you in a fight. Now, if it's one-on-one, you might. I mean, if you have good kicks and punches, you might be able to take out the guy in front of you, okay? But, if you think you're going to be doing this bouncing around stuff, fighting multiple opponents, you're going to be in for a rude awakening, all right? The other thing is the bouncing around stuff usually takes place on what? A nice floor, okay? I was in a fight once where I tripped off a curb, okay? It happens, right? I've seen guys, there's times when I was fighting on stairs. So, again, not the nice dojo floor, all right? So you got to realize that in the real world, the environment is very different, all right? So moving forward has to become an important aspect of your training. The other thing about attacking down the center line is it confuses your opponent's brain. And how does it confuse his brain? Well, just take your finger and follow your finger as it comes in between your eyes, and your eyes start to do this. So your eyes can't help but try to track the opponent as that opponent is coming down their center line. So the eyes track, but the brain can't really read that. It's not designed for the eyes to cross and try to process information, right? So it confuses the brain, all right? So it's another aspect you want to explore and you want to try. The other thing is moving to the outside, but moving in is also quite effective. So depending on my opponent's position and my position, I may wind up on the outside of his body when I'm doing a technique, but I'm still moving in, okay? So I'm not moving to the side and then moving in. I'm moving in, but the way I like to equate it is I want to move like water in a stream. So water in a stream, flowing water, comes up against the big boulder. It doesn't stop and fight the boulder. It hits the boulder and it just stays right on the boulder and it flows right around it and continues on its journey. So your opponent's attack is that boulder. So you don't want to smash his arm, right? Because that sends the message to him that his attack was blocked, his attack was stopped. You want to think his attack is going to succeed. And by the time he realizes his attack is not going to succeed, he's finished. So as you move in, right, again, you can move to the outside and move in, and that's fine. You can seize the hand, move in, do different things. But you want to still move down the center line, all right? Center line is something you want to work. Initially, it's a little disconcerting, but as you'll do it, you'll realize. And I know what I'm going to get. Okay, well, if you move down the center line, that means he'll throw the other punch. That could happen. But what I will tell you is, again, from having a lot of people throw punches at me for real, while his punch is still on its way, it's not at the target yet, I move in past that punch. And before he realizes that punch has hit me, I've already hit him in the throat. I've already put a finger in his eye, okay? I've already come in, seized his throat, and thrown him to the ground with a simple sweep, like a throw like Osotogari, right? So before he's thinking about throwing that second punch, I've already hit him. And I can tell you now, if you move down the center line and you hit someone in the throat, even if that second punch is on its way, you're going to take all the power out of it. There's going to be nothing on it. Again, I'm talking throat, you know, and I'm thinking, you know, well, what about the solar plexus? Yeah, solar plexus is a viable target. But again, it's here, a little bit easier to miss. The throat is right here, and you can hit the throat and you can seize it. Again, I'm talking real fighting. I'm not talking, you know, the dojo fantasy violence world. So, can you hit to the solar plexus? Can you hit to the ribs? What about the liver, right? Of course, you can strike to all these places, all right? And I'm not saying we don't strike to those places, all right? But your focus better be pretty good. All right, and you better make sure you hurt the guy enough when you hit him. And, you know, if you think about it, you know, there's a lot of other factors. What time of the year is it? I mean, I live in Arizona, so it's always pretty nice here, right? But, you know, we had for us, pretty severe winter. So there were nights where it dropped down to freezing and a few nights under freezing. You're wearing a jacket. You're wearing a coat, okay? You're going out in the morning. It's 30 degrees. You're wearing a coat. Okay, so if the guy's got a heavy coat on and you punch him, your punch may not have the effect you think it's going to have. And, you know, I'm sure you break bricks, and I'm sure you can break 5 boards with a punch, and that's fantastic. That's not the same as punching someone that's wearing a heavy jacket, where the clothing shifts and moves as you punch, and your punch slides a little bit, and it doesn't go straight in. Normally, there's nothing being worn here. Even if the guy's got a turtleneck on, the turtleneck's not going to stop you. You'll be able to go right through it, okay? So keep in mind that in real combat, the points you're striking at are important. Moving in, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of training yourself to move in. The students here, I have young students right now. I have some older students too, but the young guys especially. Initially, I would tell them to attack me, and I'm old enough to be their grandfather. So they're throwing punches, and the punches are going to the side of my head, over my head, or the punch is nowhere near my face. And finally, I had to say, okay, I want you to punch me in the face. And their response was, well, what if I hit you? And I laugh and I say, well, if you hit me, that's my problem. It's not your problem. So if you hit me, good for you, right? I said, but you got to try to hit me, because the guy out there is going to try to hit me. He's not going to say, oh, he's an older guy. I won't hit him so hard. Oh, he's an older guy. I'll just fake the punch to him. No, he's going to try to take my head off, okay? So once I got trained that out of them, where they would actually attempt to attack me, they couldn't understand how I could move in and redirect their punch and counter them literally like that. And the constant thing I would hear would be, I can't believe how fast you are. I can't believe, how can you be that fast? And, the thing they weren't adding was, how can you be that fast when you're so old? Because that's what they're thinking, right? Sensei's old, but look how fast he is, right? One, I keep myself in good physical condition. That's a huge plus, okay? Two, I move very smooth. So it's not necessarily that I'm extremely fast. I move very smooth, which gives the appearance of tremendous speed, okay? And I still am pretty fast, which, knock wood, good, right? But I'm not getting any younger, so that's probably going to change as time goes on. So you want to work against attacks that are coming in fast, and you want to be able to move straight in without any fear of getting hit. When you can develop that ability, when you can develop the ability to move in against real attacks with no fear and deal with that attack and take the opponent out, you're getting somewhere in martial arts. Okay. I say all the time, the guys that created these forums were geniuses. And there's a lot in these forums if you choose to take a serious look at them. The simplest thing is how often we step forward as to how often we step back. And the answer is, in all the empty hand arts I do, we step forward a lot more than we step back. Okay? And virtually, all the teachers that I train with that have a little bit more combat experience talk about moving in. All right? So you want to work on moving in. Go forward, right? Move forward, okay? Again, in the beginning, you might get hit a little bit, right? So, prepare yourself, right? But if you can train yourself to move in and squeeze out the space, the average predator cannot handle that because he's never had to handle it. So when you do that and you move in on him and you squeeze out all that space, the shock factor is tremendous. Again, his reptilian brain screams, uh-oh, 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 before he can recover and try to create a new plan of attack. You finish him. You finish him. You take him out. Okay. You dig in, you stay in. You don't hit him a few times and back out. No. You move in, you take him out till he's not a threat. Okay. Normally when I say not a threat, it means he's incapacitated to the point where he can no longer harm you. He's unconscious or he's dead. Okay. And again, when you say, Mike, dead, that's pretty harsh. Okay, well, again, depending on the situation, you may need to use lethal force. If if he's got a gun and you're struggling for that gun and he won't let go of that gun and he's trying to turn that gun towards you, you may have to use lethal force, right? So keep those things in mind. So closing, you want to make sure you train to move in. I cannot emphasize it enough. Move in, move in, move in. All right. I start training my students right off the bat because I know they're not going to move in initially. They're going to wind up backing up. But through constantly telling them, you have to move in, you have to move in, you have to move in, eventually they start to move in. And normally that move in means they go to the side. So now they're not going back, they're going to the side. Then the final stage is they start to go to the side but move in, and then eventually they're moving straight in. Okay? When I do Ippon Kumite with my students here, we do drills that are designed to increase their response time, their reaction drills. And as I'm moving in, stepping towards them, they have a tendency, they try to step in, but they move back. And eventually they're against the wall. And once they're against the wall in the dojo, I don't let them step out. So now I'm standing in front of them and I'm throwing punches at them while their back's against the wall. They put themselves there, okay, well now figure it out. And eventually they get tired of being put against the wall and they start moving in. And yeah, eventually they have trouble and they don't do well, but eventually they figure it out. Your brain, your body coordinates, it figures out how to move in. Your visual acuity starts to increase where you're picking up the hand quicker. Your hand's moving to intercept quicker. That's what we want. We don't want to make training easy. We want to make training hard. You train hard so the real fight appears to be easier. If you train easy, you're going to be in big trouble for the real fight. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, appreciate everybody that subscribes to the channel, that's been watching the podcasts. Again, I'd like to do a podcast where I answer your questions, so please send me in questions. I got a bunch of questions last week, but I need a few more so I can put them together in a 20-minute or 30-minute podcast. And thanks again. If you like it, please click the like, subscribe, and share button. Tell your friends, and more to come. Thanks. Have a great day.